why were you training on a tractor this week?
Okay.
Tell me this, because I was working all week long. By the way, I work from home remotely from the RV, and all of a sudden, like, the driver Ryan is just gone, and then I turn my head out this window right here, and I see him driving a tractor through the campground. So tell me about this whole thing, because you're telling them, but you're also telling me.
Yeah, so the campground that we're at, like, they have kind of like a volunteer kind of setup, and you get like a discount on stuff. And so one of the things I was like, well, I'm the driver Ryan, so naturally, what should the driver Ryan be doing for his volunteer work? Driving. And they needed some help moving some stuff around, and I was like, well, you know what? I've never driven a tractor, but I've driven a lot of stuff, so, you know, can I help move some things around? Can I help do some work? Because they don't have a ton of tractor drivers, and so...
You are the driver Ryan.
Yeah, and so I was like, that seems natural. Well, like, why don't I drive the tractor?
Welcome to the Wandering RV Podcast, your bi-weekly source for our stories,
Our screw-ups!
and our successes living the full-time RV life. I'm your host, Kara, the Wandering RV Babe, and this is my driver, Ryan. I mean, that is appropriate, considering you were driving not only your truck, but a tractor this week.
I was making sports car sounds, not tractor sounds.
You don't have a Hemi anymore.
Oh.
There you go. All right, so we're about to leave Florida this weekend, and we are headed to
Texas.
Okay, Texas is home. We're from Texas.
Yeah.
And we're going back for some really, really cool stuff. Like, I'm super stoked to be back. Every time we go back home...
You're stoked to have jury duty?
No. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm excited because every time we go back home, it is just like hit after hit after hit of like seeing family, seeing friends. Like, I'm super excited to see a bunch of people, but yeah, I have jury duty as well. So one of the things about RV life is you still have to have a legal residence somewhere. Our legal residence is in Texas. Luckily enough, it's where the rest of our family lives. And so that's a great thing. It also means that sometimes you get a jury summons. So I have a jury duty on Monday of this week. That'll be really fun. I actually don't mind serving on a jury. I just don't want the like jury selection process to be a waste of time. So that part is really annoying for me. But like, I wouldn't mind serving on a jury. I'm happy to do my civic service. So here's the thing though. We're in Florida. We're on the opposite coast. We're on the Atlantic side in the middle of Florida. We're driving all the way back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. And so in order to not like just completely exhaust yourself, we're going to have like, is it 4 or 5 travel days? I think it's like 4 travel days.
Well, it's actually now 5 travel days because I'm driving up to Orlando to drop you off at the airport, and then 4 more travel days.
With the trailer in tow, yeah.
So I'm going to drive, and we're going to stop in Orlando. It's only like an hour or so away, but we're going up to Orlando. Then I'm going to take 4 more travel days of my typical 5 hours to get back to Texas.
Yeah, so it's 5 travel days in a row, which we've not done together in a very, very, very long time.
Well, we're not doing it together this time.
That's grueling travel days. But you're right, we're not doing it together this time. I have jury duty on Monday. So here's what we're doing. I am flying from Orlando to Dallas so that I can be there for jury duty. And you are driving the trailer. And here's what I would say. I don't know who has it worse, because 5 travel days in a row is, can I say this? It's bitchin'. That is like, that's a bit much.
That word means a good thing.
Oh, it's shitty. But I'm flying, and if you know me, friends, you're gonna know this. I hate to fly. I can't stand it. You want to see the like terrified Kara come out? That's flying. I don't like it. It causes me anxiety. There's some like deep-seated anxiety with flying. It's not my jam. I hate it. And like every day that we get closer to a flight, I get more and more anxious. So,
And she drinks more and more.
well, yeah, that's how I cope. Anyway, but as we prepare for this, I'm getting ready to fly, which is terrifying. Like, just think of the worst fear that you could possibly have that is even quasi-legitimate.
I just thought of spiders.
Okay, imagine them crawling all over you and you don't have any control over it. This is how I feel when I fly. I realize all the rationale behind it. My father was a pilot before he retired. Like, I understand all of the things around it. I can't do it. So, well, I do it when I have to, but I'm a reluctant volunteer to do it. So, I'm flying so that I can make it back for jury duty while he's driving for 5 days. I'm not sure who has it worse, but we will find out when we get done with this whole process this week.
I feel like I have it worse just because
Yours is longer.
mine's longer.
Yours is longer.
Mine's gonna consume a lot of hours, and I'm doing it without my partner.
True, but, so fun fact, is Ryan's parents have been camping way longer than we have. And we learned a lot of camping tips and tricks from them before we decided to go full time. His dad is actually flying down the same day that I'm flying out so that he can drive with him. So at least you'll have a companion who actually knows what they're doing as a companion, which will be nice. But I agree with you. 5 days of travel, whew, in a row, that's going to be grueling. That's going to be tough. You're in it for the long haul. I just have to like survive the short trip with my issues.
And then you get to hang out with...
And then I get to hang out with your mom and your sister and my mom, who are amazing. And I love them, and I'm super, super stoked to have some amazing girl time while you boys are traveling.
So,
I am so glad the chat agrees with us. Spiders are super cringeworthy. I will say, fun fact, we don't get a ton of bugs in the RV because we have a couple of tips and tricks that we use to get rid of bugs. We're actually going to post one in the next week or two. So pay attention to our social media, and we'll post one of our tips for that. But I will say, even when we had our house, Ryan was responsible for killing all the bugs except the spiders. He is terrified of spiders. So I'm the spider killer in the house, and I show no mercy. I am ruthless when it comes to spiders. If you were a spider and you were in my house, you are going to die. It is just a fact. It's going to happen.
jumping into our main topic, we're talking about our stories, our screw-ups, and our successes. And, for a bonus point, we're going to talk about how we define success.
Yeah. So let's start with stories first. And these are kind of interesting. Some of them are kind of funny. But this one is really interesting. So this happened, like earlier this year. We spent the holidays in Texas with our family. And I had a procedure done while we were in Texas. And then we immediately, 2 days later, we went, it was not fun traveling, but we did it. It was fine. It was good. We went to Florida. So we made our way to Florida. We were in Tampa. It was all good. And then, I was not...
Well, first, we actually went over to St. Augustine first.
You're right.
And we actually did the whole touristy St. Augustine
it was cool.
While you were still recovering. Then we came back over to Tampa.
Yeah, it was cool. And we did. We took our time. We kind of took breaks. I was able to recover as much as I thought I could. And then we went to Tampa, and things just really escalated from there. And turns out, I ended up getting really, really sick, having a really high fever. We went to the ER. The site of the procedure got infected.
So for the record, we had actually... We'd gone kind of from Texas to St. Augustine with my family, with my parents, we were caravanning, and then we went to Tampa, and they actually went to Disney World?
They went to Disney World.
Whichever the one is in Orlando. They went to Disney, and we actually took their dog for the week, so that way they could spend more time every day at Disney.
Yeah.
So that way, we watched the dog, so that way they didn't have, a time constraint on when to get home and stuff like that. So we had the dog, and this was
So that meant we had 2 dogs because we
Yeah.
had their dog and we had our dog.
Right, and we get in on, I think, Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember what day it was.
I'm pretty sure the next day we went to the ER.
I think it was the night we got there.
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it was the night we got there.
It was either the night we got there or it was the very next night, and I remember you were just feeling... No, it must have been the next night, because you were feeling bad the night we got there.
Yeah.
And then you woke up and you took the day off of work.
Yeah.
Because
Which is very rare.
Because you were feeling bad, and you called your doctor who did the procedure, and you're like, hey, this is going on, like...
And she was like, go to the ER, stat.
And so about... I want to say it was probably 6 or 7 o'clock by the time we finally got the call back from the doctor, and so we were like, okay. So we went to the ER, and
yeah. So the ER was about an hour away with traffic. Got there, they got me in. They did an incredible job. I really appreciate what they did for me. It was the Tampa General Hospital. So they did an incredible job. They were super caring. They were very thorough. They ran the gamut of tests to figure out what it was, and they ultimately decided, like, yes, okay, cool, yeah, you do have an infection at the site of the procedure. So they got me hooked up on medicine. I was good to go. We were able to get through the RV, through the we were able to get through the ER trip in about, I don't know, what do you say, 4 or 5 hours? It was late, but it was still about 4 or 5 hours.
I think I dropped you off at the ER entrance because I had to go park at like maybe 7 o'clock, and then I think because I ended up having to go home to take care of the dogs. Again, it was like an hour drive.
Yeah.
And you called me. I want to say it had to have been almost 1 o'clock, and maybe midnight. Maybe it was midnight when you called me.
So longer.
Yeah, so about 5 hours, I think, is it, because by the time I got back, you still had like another 10-15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And then you were done.
Yeah. But what I would say is okay, so that's not our first ER trip.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
You had an ER trip with your mom.
So we're in a city called Florida, New York. We're actually there to visit my sister who lives in Manhattan.
This was
Brooklyn,
last year.
Brooklyn, yeah. So this was last year. So we're there to visit my sister who lives in Brooklyn. So Florida, New York is about 2 hours from New York City, which is then another 30 to 40 minutes to Brooklyn. And so we drive in, and I think we were planning on doing dinner, and she was going to make us all dinner or something like that. And so we brought our dogs with us so that way we could stay longer. And so I went ahead and drove in, which is about 2.5 hours of driving. And you're driving through New York traffic and all that stuff. And I've got my big old huge truck. And I drop everyone off at my sister's apartment. And I go off to find a parking space. Because, I mean, it's hard to find parking spaces for the most part in New York. But kind of during the day, during the week, like
Brooklyn's not as bad.
It's really not as bad.
Yeah.
Like, you can usually find a place because most people are if they have a car, it's because they drove their car to work, and so you can find a parking space nearby. So I literally go around and I'm just looking for a parking spot, and I literally find this perfect parking spot, and I get this call.
Pause. So I stayed behind while he was driving around, and Mom goes up the stairs and like plants. Like the stairs were super crickety. It was not great, and so she plants, and like we could tell, it was bad from the beginning because this is a woman who complains about nothing. She shakes everything off. She's like rough and tumble and ready to go, and it took her a minute. And it was one of those things where it was like, don't talk to me. I have to recover from this. Like, I can't do this right now. And so we all knew like this is bad. And so she gets up, we figure out like, okay, something's up with her arm, like it's not working, things are really bad. And so we call Ryan and we're like, hey, buddy, you found a perfect parking spot, drive back around.
Well, first, actually, I walked back because like it was just like we didn't know what was going on. So I walked back, checked on my mom, and we kind of got her situated. And then she was like, okay, this is not good. So me and my sister go... We're not sure. There's supposed to be an urgent care nearby, and we were like, okay, let's go check this urgent care. Let's make sure, because they have a lot of like COVID stations popping up, so we weren't 100% sure if they were actually handling regular patients or just COVID patients or COVID testing or whatever. And so we walk over there. It's maybe 2 blocks. We walk there. They're like, no, you need to go to this place. So I walk back, pick up my mom. We take her to this place, drop her off. She goes inside, and they're like, no, 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 you need to go
You
to
need to go to the ER.
you need to go to the ER. And so
in New York City.
yeah, and so I was driving around. They called me. They're like, we got to go to the ER. So I go pick her back up. I plug in the address that they told her. It's 4 miles away. I'm not a New Yorker. So when they say 4 miles away, I'm like, oh, okay, this would be a nice quick drive. No, it's like 45 minutes to drive 4 miles.
That's New York.
That's New York for you. So we drive down there. We drop her off. I kind of, again, do my thing, searching around for parking spaces near the hospital, even harder. And, like, they have a parking garage, but it's only for, like, certain circumstances. So I finally found a parking garage. We get in there, and we just sit for, I mean, honestly, I think we actually, the ER went quicker with her than it did with you, honestly.
Probably, yeah.
And so
they did a really good job of just, like, taking care of her.
And, you know, well, like we all kind of figured, she broke some bone in her arm. I don't know which one.
I think she broke 2. It was bad. So
Yeah.
she broke a couple arms in her body.
And so, yeah, it's just one of those things. And they were camping as well, so they had driven in. They were, you know, not at home. This is my sister's home. We were camping. They were camping. They'd come to join us. And it's just one of those things that you're going to run into when you're camping, that you got to find where you're going. And it's honestly, it's not a success or a failure. The failure, you broke your arm.
It's a story.
It's just a story. It's kind of like,
it happens.
It's an experience.
Shit happens. But what I will say about both of those instances is there is a learning lesson from both of those things. And that is, whenever you get to a destination, make sure you know the county that you're in, all of the emergency services that are closest to you, like ER, like the hospital, the ER, an emergency vet clinic, all of those things. You need to know those things when you get to whatever destination you're going to in an RV, because inevitably stuff's gonna happen, shit's gonna hit the fan, and you're gonna need to know those things on the fly. So that's something to just keep in mind, is you can have an ER trip. If you have to have an ER trip and you have to have a vet appointment or an emergency vet appointment, make sure you know wherever the closest place is. But so, okay, we have a story that's not medically related. It was hysterical, by the way. Where it just happened recently with the driver Ryan driving in a campground, which is normally like his like home turf. He understands how to drive in a campground. But this particular event, he like psyched himself out so much that he did not know how to drive. So I'm going to let you take it away with that tee up, because that is what happened.
For the record, so we were leaving the campground we were at in Miami, and I think we were leaving on either Saturday or Sunday, I don't remember, and it was Wednesday or Thursday, the week before we leave, and you show me this TikTok of somebody filming another camper coming around in the campground and hitting, like, so you know when you got those big electrical poles, there's like the diagonal wire that like runs into the ground where the actual power is being delivered. So they had apparently come around a corner and like caught their RV on this electrical line and like ripped huge portions of their RV off. So you showed me this on Wednesday, and then you're like, do you recognize that? And I'm like, no.
I showed you it the day before travel day. I don't know if it was Wednesday or not, but it was literally the day before travel day, which is already super stressful.
And you're like, do you recognize that? And I'm like, no, not really. And you're like, honey, that's the campground we're in.
So I knew it was the campground we're in. I was hoping he did not know it was the campground we're in, because I thought it was a hysterical video of somebody who just, they flat out were not paying attention. They just rounded this curve as if they were not towing anything behind them, and they were towing a big ass trailer behind them. And
smaller than ours, but
much smaller than ours. Much smaller than ours.
But okay, so let me say So we leave our campsite and we're in a pull through, so we have to kind of like pull out and go straight. And so I'm going straight, and we get to the end of the row, and I'm like, wait a minute, and we pull up, and it's that corner. Now they were coming the other way, we're going this way, so we're going to opposite directions. But immediately, what popped into my mind was there is somebody back this way, right over
Who's filming?
who might be filming.
They know they've got TikTok gold right there at that corner.
Yeah, so I'm like, wait a minute. So somebody's watching me. And so, like, I get to it, and I'm like, I think if it had been any other time, I would have, taken my wide turn. Everything would have been fine. And I started to, well, actually, I will say, honestly, I was expecting to turn right, and then I saw the signs that actually told me I needed to go left. And so I was like, so I kind of had started my turn planning to go right. And then
I pointed out the, like, mangled power lines from the guy who had ripped it up ahead of time.
And so I had started to turn right, and I'm like, okay, so I just got in my own head. I'm like, there's potentially somebody back here filming me. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take any risk. I'm not going to just switch over to a left turn. I was like, I'm going to back up, and I'm going to make sure I take the widest possible left turn so I get nowhere close to this electrical line. So if you're watching this, person who recorded that TikTok, you cost me 15 minutes of readjusting my turn.
It was not 15. It was like 5 minutes of readjusting. I promise. It was 5 minutes of readjusting your turn. But I will say, if you ever need to see how to make that turn perfectly in slow motion, that's the guy to watch.
I took that turn the safest, most unnecessary way possible. Like, I legitimately was so far away from the electrical line, you'd think that it was putting off radiation, because I just didn't want to be anywhere close to it for risk of catching the camper, and then worse, like, honestly, catching the camper, like, okay, insurance is going to cover that. No, well, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have. So that would have sucked. But then also being caught on camera as the guy who did that. And I just was like...
It was the star moment. It was your star moment. You had to make it perfect. So let's catch up on the chat really quick. I'm actually going to turn our AC off while you check the chat really quick, and then we will move to the next topic.
Yes, we were camping in New York. We were camping in Florida, New York. So we weren't in New York City, but we were in New York State. It is about 2 hours away. It is literally the closest campground you can get to New York City without being in the city. There is at least one campground that I know of that's in the city, but it has no sewer hookups. Okay, next one. We keep a board on the door with our address, including our site number.
That is super smart.
Yep. Ever been casino camping? Yes.
Yes!
In Iowa, actually. Yeah. Of all places, there is a casino in Iowa. Super, super cheap. Really nice, because you can just go into the casino. You can go play the casino, or you can go to the hotel area, and you can use the pool and the hot tub. It was really, really nice.
It was, fun fact, it was the only place we could get because we're full-timers, and we forgot to think through the weekenders and, like, the crazy weekend camping that occurs for Labor Day.
Yeah.
So we couldn't find another spot for a week, so we ended up at a casino, and it was honestly amazing.
Yeah, it was
really
good.
Super cool.
And it's one of those things, like, when you're doing it full time, like, you don't think about holidays the same way. You think about, like, the major holidays where you're going to go home, but you don't think about, like, Labor Day or Memorial Day in advance. And so, like, I kind of got caught in my own mind of, like, oh, we're fine, we'll find a campground. Nope. It was Labor Day weekend. We weren't finding a campground.
Yeah.
How long have we been full-timing?
Nearly 2 years. We've been full-time nearly 2 years. We've been part-time, too long to count. All of our lives, essentially. Separately and together, we've done camping multiple times a year for all of our lives, pretty much. So yeah, full-time though, about 2 years.
I think that's it.
Okay, cool.
Cool, we are caught up. Okay.
Moving on.
So next, we're going to talk about some of our actual screw-ups.
Yeah, you should learn from our mistakes so you don't make them. Okay, My recent mistake has to be the sealant around the RV. So in December, we took our RV back to the dealer who has this program where if you buy your RV from them, they will do like kind of a once-over inspection on the RV every year. And so they did. They did an amazing job. And they told us during their inspection that our sealant around the outside, so like the seals between the slide and the like trim on the outside of the RV.
It's the trim just to kind of like cover the gaps.
Yeah. So it has a sealant or kind of like an outside caulking essentially around the outside of it. And they said, hey, at least on the sun side of the RV, the side of the RV that hits the sun most of the time, it's broken in a couple of places. And so you need to like reseal that. So they offered to do it for us. They were going to charge us what a dealer charges to do that shit. And we were like, no thanks, we'll just buy the sealant ourselves.
On top of that, they said they were having issues getting, so it was done with clear sealant, and there was and maybe there still is from what I hear, I don't know, a shortage of clear sealant, and so they were like, we're going to have to do it in a white sealant, and we were like...
We'll do it ourselves.
I think in my mind a little bit, I was like, well, they have a shortage, maybe we'll be able to find some clear sealant somewhere. Nope,
I did the research, there is no clear sealant for that. So anyway, long story short, we got the Dicor non-leveling sealant, because that's the one that you want to put on vertical surfaces. The Dicor leveling sealant you put on horizontal surfaces like your roof. But yeah, they don't have clear sealant. So white sealant is the best we could come up with. We went ahead and got a couple bottles of that, and we decided to do it ourselves. We had never done it before. And yours truly decided, man, I'm gonna like contribute to the RV, because he's the one who does all of the repairs. He's the one who dumps all the tanks. He's the one who drives the RV. So I was like, I want to contribute. I want to do this. I can draw a straight line. We're gonna be good to go. Y'all, I mean, I did it. It ended up looking like a 2-year-old did it, but I did it. And so that was fun. So we ended up spending the next few weeks after that going and taking like a credit card and scraping off the extra, which was a lot, by the way. Like, I gooped it on there. I mean, it was there, but I gooped it on there, and our RV looked like shit when I first did it.
It still kind of does.
Yeah, it kind of still does. But I did my best. Now, we have since learned more techniques. YouTube is great.
Yeah.
YouTube,
Use the YouTubes. There are training videos out there.
YouTube is a great feature. But I did it because I wanted to prevent any leaks from happening. So even though it looks terrible, even though it looks like a 2-year-old did it, and we've done some touch-ups since then, and we've figured out how to do it better for the next time around that we have to do it, because it's going to be an annual kind of maintenance thing that we have to do, if not more often, because we like to spend time in hot weather.
It's just going to come up.
Yeah. So we learned how to do it.
And we already actually have a spot that we need to...
We do need to touch up. Yeah, we actually have a spot we already need to touch up. Not because of my mistake, but because of just where the RV is, and it just kind of starts to separate.
That same side, we seem to be getting unlucky.
Side.
We keep facing that side towards the sun for the majority of the day. Real quick...
But that was my screw up.
Yeah. Real quick, RV Goonies asks, how do you both handle a stressful situation together?
Well, it depends on how stressful.
Yeah.
There's a scale.
There is a scale. So for the most part, we're pretty level-headed people. I'm going to be honest. Like, we kind of...
we both tend to veer towards logic over emotion.
Yeah, and that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the other side. It's totally, like, it's not a, like, we're better than you. It's just, like, when we're both doing something, we kind of get...
better than you.
Okay. When we're doing something, we kind of get in the, like, I'm gonna do this moment, and so we're kind of single-minded focus.
So, I think the overarching thing that works for us is we have our set things that we are responsible for. And so we know, like, we just go into kind of task mode on the things that we know are, like, our jobs, for lack of a better term, or our talents, for lack of a better term. We did our stories, our success, our screw-ups. Now we gotta do our successes.
No. We haven't finished screw-ups.
Oh, we haven't finished. Okay, so we screwed up more.
Yeah.
we
Oh.
we did more screw ups.
One of our other big scripts that we've had recently is we were heading oh gosh, where were we heading? We were heading from Tampa to Gainesville, maybe? Was it then?
Maybe.
It might have been. So we were heading.
I think so.
We were heading somewhere in Florida, and we had a campground booked.
Oh, we were heading from Pensacola to Gainesville.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it was from Pensacola. So we had a campground booked, but the weather got really bad.
Yeah.
And we decided, okay, the campground we were staying at, no cement pads, no nothing. It was going to be a little muddy, and so we
were worried that we were going to get stuck in the mud.
Yeah, and so we decided we wanted to find somewhere with cement pads, and we were like, you know what, we've never tried. It's cool enough. Like it was kind of nice. It was like 60.
It's like in the 60s.
Yeah, it was in the 60s. So we were like, you know what, we don't need the ACs. We're gonna go to a Cracker Barrel and we're gonna boondock. Well, okay, so we bought our camper in 2021, and from what I hear, some of this is due to part shortages. But essentially, we have a residential fridge that cannot run on propane. It only runs on the inverter. And we hadn't really tested to see like what was going to happen, but I'd heard from a couple of other campers that they usually get about 8 to 10 hours out of their fridge on the inverter if they lose power. So I was like, okay, we can probably do this. So I stayed up late. I stayed up not late, but I stayed up and was starting the truck every once in a while to like make sure that we were charging the batteries as best we could. And that didn't really work out. I didn't really think through it a whole lot, and so I should have been going out and like actually revving the engine a little bit up, get the alternator turning, and make sure that was working. But all that to say, essentially what we ended up, our first time trying to boondock,
it was rough.
it wasn't horrible. Our batteries got low enough that the fridge had cut off. We hadn't opened it, but we went ahead and threw all the meat away in the fridge the next day. The freezer hadn't really
unfrozen. It wasn't a ton of meat.
No, I didn't have a lot with us.
Yeah.
And then the freezer didn't really have time to unfreeze, so it was fine. But
so fun fact, if you throw it's just a small cup of water in your freezer, and then you put a penny, let that freeze, and then put a penny on top of that will tell you if anything in your freezer has melted. And that's how we knew our freezer was fine, is because the penny didn't drop. The penny wasn't in the ice.
Yep.
It was still sitting on top.
It's a great trick at home, but it's really useful in an RV to know if your freezer ever gets low enough that if the top layer of water melts enough that the penny can move down, then you're done. Then you know that everything in your freezer is pretty much done at that point.
Yeah.
And so we killed the battery, but really what the worst part of it was, we threw a little bit of meat away from the fridge, but our stabilizer struts, I put them down just to kind of like make the RV a little stabler overnight while we were sleeping and everything. That way if one of us got up, it just kind of makes it all nicer. And obviously we had the slides out while we were there as well, so we could actually move in between everything.
Which they gave us permission to do. So that's one of the things I will say is we stopped at a Cracker Barrel. We asked them if we could stay there overnight, and we asked them if we could put our slides out. And they were very accommodating. They were very, very sweet, and they allowed us to do that. So please make sure if you are boondocking somewhere in like a Cracker Barrel or Walmart that you go and ask permission first, because if you don't, you might run into trouble. So yes, we asked permission, put our slides out, put our struts down, all good there.
So anyways, I couldn't get our struts up and I couldn't get our slides in, and so I've got the truck. I plugged the truck back in because I did unplug it right before I went to sleep just to make sure that I didn't drain the truck battery down, so it didn't kill the battery on the truck.
That was smart.
But I plugged it back in.
We needed it the next morning.
Yeah, I plugged it in and I had it sitting just with the truck running for a little bit while we were getting everything else prepped, and then I go pull the struts up.
They don't want to work.
And so that's when I realized, like, just running the truck is not enough. You need to be engaging the gas, like hitting the alternator. So even, in park, just sitting there revving the truck. And so I sat there and I think I was revving the truck for like a good 15, 20 minutes to get the batteries charged up enough that we could bring the slides in and we could bring the struts up so we could actually hit the road. And on
Yeah.
top of that, I was down to a quarter tank of diesel and was sitting here burning through it. I think we when we got there the night before, I had like maybe 3/8 of a tank. And then between the starting and stopping over, in the evening while I was trying to keep the batteries charged, lost another eighth. And then in the process of trying to get the batteries charged up enough so that I could actually pull everything in, I think lost almost another eighth. And so I'm like, we have to go to a gas station right now. And so we finally,
Thankfully, there was one down the road.
yeah, and so we got everything in. It was fine. It all worked out. But it's one of those, like, we will not be boondocking anytime soon unless we upgrade the batteries on the RV. And that's honestly, like, it's not, we don't need solar. It's not a generator. We really don't want to carry a generator. We stay at campgrounds so long that a generator would not be useful. Like, it's not
not a good return on investment.
No, yeah, we mostly, like, the campground we're at right now, we've been at a month. The campground we were at right before that, we were at a month. The campground right before that, we were at 3 weeks. So, like, we're not going to be places generally where having a generator would help. It's just those one-off travel days where it'd be like, might be nice not to have to, get a campsite with power. But at the same time, it's really easy to just get a campsite with power.
Yeah, honestly, so we use a lot of times if we have 2 travel days in a row, because we try to limit, so we work during the week, Monday through Friday. And so we try to schedule our travel days on the weekends if we're going to travel, which is why we like to stay places longer so we can explore the area. But if we're going to have 2 travel days in a row, or more than one travel day in a row, essentially, we love Harvest Host and Boondockers Welcome. They're together.
Yeah.
So if you have an account with one, you have an account with the other. And a lot of times you can even search by the filter of, do you have electricity? And that's kind of our barometer of, do you have electricity? Can we plug into electricity? If we can at least plug it into electricity, we can mooch dock off of you instead of completely boondock. And at least we don't have this issue because we're usually self-sufficient for a day or two with our water and for sure our gray tank and black tank. But electricity is a little bit tough because of the fridge, because it draws so much power.
Right. Okay, real quick. Our Scrunchy says their RV is set up to boondock, solar, and generate. That is great.
Boom! Okay, you're gonna have to tell us what you prefer, if there's a preference on solar versus generator, because, again, for us, we're not finding the value in terms of return on investment for one or the other versus just spending the $5 to go to a Boondockers Welcome or Harvest Host and tipping $5 to allow them to use for us to use their electricity. So you'll have to tell us if you prefer one or the other and why, because we would love to know more information about that.
And then Danny Boy says, if you haven't killed a battery yet, you haven't tried.
That is true. That 100%. That is true. You haven't tried your battery, you don't know what the limits are yet. So yes, we have killed the battery already, and we could not pull up the struts until we essentially jumped the RV. So yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, we've been looking, like, I've been looking at generators for a long time, and it's just, they're so dang expensive, and ours was not built with it. Mm-hmm. The solar stuff is cool, but again, a lot of it's really expensive, and I'm not sure, like, the problem that we had, so sure, I could just throw some solar panels up on the top of our roof right now, but the problem is our batteries didn't even last 8 hours running just the refrigerator. We'd have to upgrade to solar and, really more importantly, better batteries to even make the solar even effective. And honestly, at this point, like, who knows, maybe we'll be in this RV a long time and we'll want to do that, and we'll do it then. But for the moment, I'm kind of content to be like, okay, well, $10 here and there every once in a while for a travel day to, borrow somebody's electricity while we're at a Boondockers Welcome is really not that big of an issue. And so it's not an upgrade that I'm intent to do yet. And the same goes for the generator. It's a lot of money, and you've got to use that thing a lot to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, and what I will say about that is it's cheaper than a daily rate at a campground, because most campgrounds are anywhere between $25 and $50 a night, depending on where you're at, what time of year you're at, and the destination that you're at. And so if we can find a campground from or a stop in through Harvest Host or Boondockers Welcome that's either free or going to charge us $5 to $10 to plug into electricity, we're going to take that hands down over a regular campsite. And we're not sponsored by Harvest Host or Boondockers Welcome or anything like that. It's just something that we found that's useful, and so we're sharing it with you in case that's something that's useful to you too.
Okay, so moving on from our failures, why don't you introduce us to one of our successes?
Oh, we had a cool one. Okay, oh gosh, what was the campground? You're gonna have to look up the campground while I tell the story. So we had an issue. We talked about it at length during episode 11. So if you want to go and look at like the stupid, crazy story, go look at episode 11. But essentially what happened in a nutshell is we had everything planned out. We called in advance. We did all the right things, and we still got stranded in the middle of the night. And we had nowhere to go for a multi-day trip when we were in St. Augustine, which we've already talked about earlier in this episode. So we called around. We were looking for a place to stay, even just overnight, to host us because we were really, really at a loss and we had nowhere else to go. And this place was amazing. They answered late night, after hours. And what was really funny was the guy, when he answered the phone, he was like, yeah, I don't know if I can get you at a premium site. I can only offer you full hookups. And I was like, what? You can only offer us full hookups? Like power, sewer, electric, water? Like power, sewer, water? You can only offer us that? Yes, we'll take it. It's great. And so he was amazing. He's the owner of this place. It is Four Lakes Campground in Hastings, Florida, which is just outside of St. Augustine. They're amazing. They're fairly new, so they have a lot of really new accommodations. All of their hookups are very new. They're around this like little
it's a lake.
Yeah.
But it's more of a pond.
Pond, lake. They're around a water source that is very, very well maintained. The campground overall is very, very well maintained. They have very reasonable rates, especially considering that they're in a high tourist area. And the owner was amazing. So they took us in overnight. By the way, at the time, it was not just us. We were caravanning with Ryan's parents. So it was 2 trailers who got stranded overnight, and he was able to accommodate us both. And then when we got there, we were expecting just for him to accommodate us for the night. And we happened to tell him, like, hey, we're in town for the week. We were planning on, vacationing and going into St. Augustine, kind of doing the touristy, thing to do there. And we asked him, we were like, here was our initial reservation. We were planning on staying through whatever X date it was. And we were like, is there any way that you maybe have some availability for that? And he was like, yeah, actually I do. And so he was able to accommodate us for the entire time that we were there. Fun fact, it was actually closer to St. Augustine than our original reservation was. So it was awesome. The campground was amazing. It was super pristine. And we loved it. And so he did an incredible job. If you're in that area, you're kind of near the Four Lakes area, or the St. Augustine, Daytona area, definitely check out Four Lakes Campground because it's awesome. We had some other successes too along the way. Like, I distinctly remember when we got our camper back in December from getting it all checked over. So like the dealer checks it over, they make sure everything's great. All is well. They fixed some stuff that needed to be fixed. They did some warranty work that needed to be fixed. They did an incredible job. So no knock against them. But we get it back, and the exact same day, we go to move all of our stuff back in, and we find a huge water leak.
So we got our RV back. We were staying with my parents, and one of the things I wanted to do was to sanitize the RV, and I wanted to go ahead and get that done since we weren't staying in there. And we could do that overnight and then move to our campground and everything.
Wait. That's kind of a success. I know this is not like part of what you were planning on talking about. Can you talk about a little bit about how you sanitize the RV? It's an important thing to do.
I don't know that I can walk through all the steps at this moment, but basically what it comes down to is getting all the water out of the system that you can, and then basically you get a sanitizing agent like bleach and mix it with water, and then you, on your RV, potentially, depending on what RV you have, at your manifold, you'll have a sanitized setting, which will basically direct the pump to pull from the inlet, and so you can basically just have like a little tube dumped in a bucket with water and bleach, and you run that into your fresh tank, and then you fill your fresh tank the rest of the way, and then you basically just run from the fresh, you let it sit in the fresh tank for a little bit, and then you run from the fresh tank through all of your hoses, get all of that in. So basically you're getting bleach into all of your lines, let that sit for 24 hours,
Yeah.
and then you drain everything back out. You do you run water through all of the lines till you stop until you stop smelling the bleach, and you dump all of that out, and you dump your fresh tank and everything like that, and go ahead and fill your fresh tank again, dump your fresh tank one more time, and that way you get all of the bleach out, so that way you have a nice clean environment, and it just kills any potential bacteria that are growing. Most of our water that we get is chlorinated, so it's usually not gonna, there's not gonna be a lot of growth, but it does happen depending on what campgrounds you're staying at, and so it's really beneficial to sanitize your RV at least once a year if you're a full-timer.
100%.
If you're not a full-timer, then sanitize at the beginning of the season and winterize at the end, and the winterizing agent will also do a little bit of the sanitizing for you, and that'll help keep the lines from freezing, and so that has additional properties.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's a good tip. It's something I had no idea about, but it's something I think that's really important. So moving on to your actual topic.
So we were doing all of that, and essentially what we discovered is there was a leak somewhere in one of the hot water lines right outside the manifold. Like, essentially, we ran the water through, we got it all pressurized, and then we were running all the water, and I got into the basement, and there's just this giant puddle. And we had everything out of the basement at the time, so it was really beneficial that we found it when we did, because we'd pulled everything out of the basement while we took it to get the warranty work done. And so when I was doing all this, like, the leak was very obvious, so I was able to pull the wall off and find the leak super, super easy. The hard part is the way that at least our camper's built. None of the plumbing lines use any sort of standard fitting, even for the type of lines that they are. And so essentially your best bet is you're almost, in a lot of cases, you're just having to cut lines off wherever any of the fittings are. And so I found one area where I could see the water dripping from the fitting. So I was like, okay, I think it was an angle joint. So we went to the local store. We actually went to Home Depot and Lowe's first to look and see, and they had some stuff, but not quite right. So we ended up going down to the RV store. We found an angle joint that was going to work. It wasn't the same one that was on there, but it was easy enough to get on. We got that replaced. All good. Run water pressure through it again. There's another leak farther down. Now,
It's one leak, and now there's a second. This is RV life, guys.
Yeah,
this is RV life.
And so then we had to run down again, and this one is at a T-joint, so I had to find a T-joint that was actually going to fit. Luckily, they had it. Again, it wasn't the same one that was there, so I had to kind of jerry-rig it in. But I got it all hooked up and all set up, and over the course of the next couple of weeks, I had to go in every once in a while and retighten, get everything down and solid, and then finally we're good. But it was just kind of one of those, like, it was inconvenient, it was annoying, and if you look at it at first glance, it feels like a failure, but in reality, like, it was a really, really successful moment that we discovered it soon enough and got it taken care of soon enough before it became a major issue and we had flooding in our entire basement.
Yeah. No, it was a tough lesson to learn, and unfortunately it was really, really cold too, and so part of that is a symptom of it being really cold is, like, all of the lines restrict, and so it creates more leaks. But that's also a really good opportunity to find the leaks and fix them. So we had 2 leaks literally back to back the same day that we got our camper back from warranty and just, like, general maintenance and general service for the year. But we were able to fix it, which was great. And so far, so good. So those are successes. I think the other success was, so we initially started, so our camper came, and we got our camper because of the floor plan that it had. But our camper came with a dinette, which is where we're sitting right now, and a living room area that had two opposing couches in two different slide outs. So the slide outs are just opposite of each other, and they have two different couches. So we ripped out the dinette, we ripped out the couches.
One of the couches.
One of the couches. And we put two sit-stand desks there because we both work. Well, what we realized over the course of at least the first 9 months, if not a full year, is that we don't necessarily both need two separate workstations. We can use the same workstation, and whoever needs it at the time can use kind of the big monitor of the workstation, and the other person can work from, a couch, or can work from one of the lawn chairs outside, because we do RV life, and so we can work from different areas of the camper when we don't need to use the big monitor. So what we decided to do was take one of those spaces in the slide out. We pulled out the sit stand desk. I think we still have it in storage. Maybe we'll sell it. I don't know. But we decided that we were going to use it to create a little bit more storage for ourselves, because it's just the two of us and our dog. And so I found a kind of a dresser that had just like 3 shelving units that closed on Wayfair. It looked like it fit the bill, and when we got it, it was a pleasant surprise because it literally matches our decor and like the aesthetic of our walls and our trim and everything exactly. So it looks like it was built for this RV, which is amazing. So we put that in there on one side of that slide out. The other side of the slide out we actually use to store our e-bikes. So we have these e-bikes from Rad, and they're
Rad
Express 5?
Expand 5.
Rad Expand 5. So it's a folding e-bike. We both got them, and they fit perfectly in that space. So we can store them inside. Fun fact, they sit over the wheel?
Over the axles.
Over the axles. So it's nice for travel day because it's not sitting on the back of the RV because our bumper cannot handle that weight. It's inside where it's the most secure, which is really, really nice, and where it can handle the extra weight of the e-bikes because they're fairly heavy. And so now we've created just more space by optimizing kind of the space that we already had, which was really cool. So I think that was a success, personally.
I mean, it definitely was a great way to enhance the space. And so what's nice is when we pull the bikes out, when we get to the campsite, like it just kind of makes the whole space open. And when we have guests or family over, like we have a ton of space when we pull out some of our extra chairs. And we've literally had 11 people in our camper, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. We had our first Thanksgiving on the road last year. So our family, we always get together, and we do it at one person's house or another, and yada yada yada. Well, I had the idea. I was like, hey, why don't we all, my parents have a camper, my sister and her husband at the time had a camper. Like, hey, why don't we all just meet at a campground, and we'll cook up a turkey, we'll cook up some sides, and we'll just eat at the camper.
Yeah, my mom came and like camped in a cabin, and so we did Thanksgiving camping style. Unfortunately, it rained the entire time, and our RV was the biggest one, and it could actually accommodate all of those people. And so that was a really cool way to spend Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite Thanksgivings. I will never forget it.
Yeah. So I wanted to end with just like a little quick, kind of recap of how do we define success? It's not just a lack of failure. It's about, for us, fulfilling experiences, like enjoying ourselves, having fun together,
creating memories, even if it's like, man, this was a terrible experience. Yeah. It's a memory, and now we can like take that with us, and it's a fun story.
Yeah, so don't hide away just looking for, the lack of failure means we succeeded. No, no, no. Look for the moments that you want to hold
Mm-hmm.
on to.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and then the other big one that I think is really important is just kind of anticipation. Like things are going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So just be happy if you anticipate it. Like just the fact of like, hey, there's a tire that's kind of leaking a little bit, and we replaced it before it before it exploded on us on the road.
Yeah.
That's
huge.
That's huge. Like
That's
it,
huge.
it feels like you're just doing menial tasks, but it's a huge success to be able to handle those moments and just go ahead and work through them before they even become something you think about. And it's really really great that you spend your mental energy on the moments that you've made and the things that you've kind of done, even if they feel like a nothing burger.
I love that. A nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. I feel like that's our pick of the week for this week, honestly, is be flexible like Gumby. Just know your plan is going to fail when you're doing RV life, whether you're doing it as a weekend warrior or you're doing it as a full-timer or you're doing it as a part-time weekend warrior or part-time full-timer. Plans are going to change and stuff is going to happen. So if you can be flexible and you can plan on plan B through Z, then you're going to be in a much better shape. And if nothing else, just take it in stride and know, hey, it's a fun story. I have some resources that I can call. I have some people that'll be in my corner no matter what. You're going to be fine. So that's kind of our pick of the week. I know normally with a pick of the week, we kind of try to choose an actual object or service or something that like you can buy to help you with RV life. But honestly, like being flexible and having the right attitude is part of RV life. It's something that you're never going to experience the same way in just regular, like if you're living in the sticks and bricks, but it is 100% something that is just part of your everyday life when you're living in an RV, whether it's one day or whether it's 365 days. So that I would say is definitely our pick of the week. Do we have a fan question?
Okay, our fan question, is we've gotten this actually from multiple people, is whether or not we do work camping.
Oh yeah, that's a really common question. So not directly. There are so many other people that have done work camping. You should definitely check them out because they have a lot more information about it. We've done some.
I mean,
it's kind of.
No, we really haven't done any.
Yeah, we haven't done any traditional work camping. I will put it that way.
Yeah. Okay, so follow-up question then, if we haven't done it, for those who are new to this camping lifestyle, what is work camping?
Yeah, so work camping is where you coordinate with a campground, and you commit to work for that campground. Usually they will take couples. In fact, a lot of times they prefer couples, but not necessarily. But you commit to work for that campground a certain number of hours per week for a certain duration of time. Usually it's at least 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 months, if not longer. And then they give you either a discount on your site or a free site to stay at. Generally, that's with full hookups, which is really, really nice. So it's part-time work for full hookups. So you're essentially getting your accommodations for free while you work part-time at a particular campground. And the contracts are for a different number of period of time. Some of them are for a year long. Some of them are for as short as like 3 or 4 months. But it's a great way to do this life, get to travel, get to discover different things, get to really do a ton of fun experiences, and also do it on the cheap, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, it's really beneficial. It's really helpful. It's just a great way to save money. That's honestly what it comes down to. And you get to meet a lot of fun people along the way.
Yeah, I will say if you're targeting work camping, the state parks and national parks are a great place to start, at least, because they generally look for work campers and they have amazing accommodations in terms of their campsites. But they're not the only ones that offer that. And so if that's something that you're looking for, definitely search for work camping opportunities. I think there are websites for it, where jobs will be posted and different sites will be posted. But you could even just call a campground that you're interested in going to in a certain location that you're interested in going to and ask them about it, and they will tell you what their parameters are for work camping. But it's a great way to do this RV life and make it sustainable. Hey friends, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. We are on all of the social medias: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube. So check us out on all of those sites. We definitely want to connect. So connect with us on those sites, or connect with us on our email at podcast.wanderingrvbabe.com, or our website at beacons, beacons.ai/wanderingrvbabe.
Link in the bio.
Link in the bio on all of our socials. We'll see you next time. Oh, good lord.
Okay, so we're heading back to Texas.
Yeah.
And we're heading to the DFW area, very specifically, which is like, this place is freaking expensive.
Holy cow! This place is expensive. Let me just say, he does all of our reservations, but just with the ballpark numbers that he's given me, which I'm sure he will correct me on here in just a minute, staying in DFW, like Dallas-Fort Worth, if you stay in Dallas-Fort Worth as an RVer,
at least where it's close to our family and our friends,
it is almost as expensive, if not more expensive, than staying in New York, Miami, and California.